All right, let's journey back, way back, to the dawn of civilization. We're going to look at how two of the first ever superpowers, Mesopotamia and Egypt, built their empires. Now, you might think, okay, two ancient empires, probably similar stories, right? Wrong. Their blueprints for power were, well, fundamentally different. Let's dive in.
So here's the big question we're tackling today. How in the world were the very first empires even built? I mean, what was the playbook for getting thousands and thousands of people to fall in line under one single ruler for the first time in human history? What's the secret?
And you know, the answer isn't a simple one. It's really a tale of two lands. A tale of how their paths to power were shaped by literally everything, from their gods, to their rivers, to their geography. They give us two totally different answers to that big question of how to rule.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning, in these two cradles of civilization. Mesopotamia, that's the land between the rivers, and Egypt, the gift of the Nile. On the surface, yeah, they look kind of similar, but when you dig down to their foundations, couldn't be more different. So before they became these huge empires, both of these places were, well, they were divided. Over in Mesopotamia, you had two distinct groups, the Sumerians down in the south and the Akkadians up in the north. In Egypt, same story, different map. It was fractured into two kingdoms, Lower Egypt, that's up around the Nile Delta, and Upper Egypt, further down the Nile Valley. This division, this initial split, is going to be key. It really sets the stage for the powerful leaders who will eventually come in and unite them.
So, before they even thought about becoming empires, these lands were run in completely different ways. And this is the first major split in their political DNA, you could say. It's the city-state versus the kingdom.
Let's start with southern Mesopotamia. The Sumerians, they basically pioneered the idea of the city-state. Think of it as a super-localized system. Power wasn't with some king ruling a huge territory. Nope. It was centered right on the temple of the local god in each city. That temple was everything. It was the bank, it was the community center, it was the seat of all authority, the whole shebang.
But just to their north, you've got their neighbors, the Akkadians, who had a totally different idea. They operated more like one single cohesive territory. They didn't have that patchwork of independent city-states you saw in the south. And, of course, this created a natural tension, right? A different model of power sitting right on the Sumerians' doorstep.
Okay, so while the Sumerians and Akkadians are working out their models, let's jump over to Egypt, because they took a completely different path. They just skipped the whole city-state thing entirely. Right from the start, power in Egypt was organized on a much, much bigger scale, already consolidated into those two massive kingdoms we talked about. Their whole political mindset was regional from day one. So you've got these divided lands, each with its own system. The next step feels almost inevitable, right? Unification. But to do that, you need a unifier. You need a powerful figure who can actually forge an empire out of all these separate pieces. And here they are. From Mesopotamia, that figure was Sargon of Accad. He was the northerner who came down and conquered and unified all those Sumerian city-states with his own territory. And in Egypt, it was a ruler we know as Menes. He's the one who brought Upper and Lower Egypt together, kicking off the very first dynasty. So you've got two men, two massive unifications, and the birth of two empires. But look at the dates here. This is absolutely crucial. Menes unifies Egypt way back around 3000 BC. Sargon does the same in Mesopotamia 7 centuries. That's 700 years later. I mean, that gap is enormous. It gave Egypt this massive head start, not just in running a unified state, but in developing the very idea of what a state and a ruler could even be. And that brings us to maybe the most profound difference between them, the very source of a ruler's right to rule. Where does power come from? Is it something you seize here on Earth, or is it a gift from the heavens? Remember, back in Mesopotamia, power was local. It was rooted in the earth, literally tied to the temple in each city. Even after Sargon came in and conquered everyone, that idea of localized authority was still super influential. Power there grew from the ground up.
But over in Egypt, that 700-year head start let a radically different idea take hold and really flourish, the concept of a divine monarchy. Here, power didn't come from a temple. It came from the ruler himself. He wasn't just a representative of the gods, he was a god.
And this idea was taken to its absolute extreme. The pharaoh wasn't just some king. No, he was seen as the living, breathing embodiment of the sky god, Horus, right here on Earth. That means his authority was absolute, it was divine, and it was all centralized in him. This is a total top-down model of power, the complete opposite of what we saw in Mesopotamia.
So let's just break it all down. The basic political unit in Mesopotamia, the city-state. In Egypt, the kingdom. The source of power in Mesopotamia, the local temple on the ground. In Egypt, the divine pharaoh from the heavens. And this led to totally different paths to empire. Unification through military conquest in Mesopotamia versus the establishment of a dynastic, God-given rule in Egypt. So, at the end of the day, what does this all boil down to? Two of our very first empires were built on two completely opposing ideas. Is real power divine, something handed down from the gods to one special person? Or is it terrestrial, growing from the ground up, through the institutions of a city? This fundamental question, it didn't just shape the ancient world, it's a question we're honestly still wrestling with today.